Welcome to Black and Gold Digital Edition, a behind-the-scenes look at your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hi, and welcome to Week 14 of our digital show. I'm Jay Pushko alongside with Mike Fenner and Kent Urbanski. And guys, the ups and downs for the Pittsburgh Steelers continues, and boy, what a week it was. Last Sunday, they go into Heinz Field on their home turf. They are able to beat the Baltimore Ravens in dramatic fashion, 20-19, and then they go on the road trip, short work week, face the Minnesota Vikings. They get down by 29 points, and they had a chance to tie it up and possibly win it. Don't know what to make about this team anymore. I mean, the struggles continue with slow starts, especially in the first three quarters of play, and we saw a lot of it on Thursday night.
It's a terrible trend that's starting to rear its ugly head here right now, you know, with win one, lose one, win one, you know, get up for a game at home against the Ravens that you really needed. A really electric crowd that day, being there at Heinz Field that I haven't heard in a while. And so you started to feel a little good about the Steelers again and their chances, especially going up to Minnesota and playing a team that just lost to the Lions. So what does that tell you now about these two teams, you know? So
A tie and a loss.
Right.
It was the Lions Bowl.
Right. So, I mean, you know, and like I said, it's a terrible trend that's going on right now with Pittsburgh, that they get on the road like that and they don't show up until the end of the game when it's just a little bit too late to make a difference.
And of course, Mike, these games are so critical now because the AFC is just so jumbled together, and to have the performance that they've had the last 2 weeks where this offense just doesn't come alive until the fourth quarter, it really speaks volumes as to just the sense of urgency for these guys to really get off to a good start.
The thing that's crazy is you can almost take solace in the fact that they were a play away from getting that two-point conversion attempt. No team in NFL history has ever come back from down 28 points in regulation in a game at any point. They were right there. I mean, they completely flipped this game around, but unfortunately, like you said, it's just no one's going to look at the box score and care, because a loss is the same as losing by 40 points or losing to the Lions, which they didn't do. But anyway, it's tough to swallow that pill, because it just makes no sense that they can play so poorly, have such little energy, can't protect the quarterback, can't stop the run for three quarters, and then all of a sudden everything just comes together and they play complementary football, but they just run out of time. I mean, they were right there, had their chances, but it's really puzzling, and it's really got to be frustrating for the fans.
And guys, I don't normally talk to the television while watching a game, but in the final drive, I was screaming at the TV wondering, what is Chase Claypool doing? Celebrating a first down, and the clock is ticking, and they're trying to engineer a game-tying drive, and here he is doing an individual thing yet again. A couple weeks ago, he called out some attention about music at practice, and then this boneheaded mood. It's almost as if he doesn't understand the magnitude of what these games are all about.
Yeah, even the personal foul against him, you know, sticking his finger in the guy's face, you know, after a meaningless play, you know, that it's undisciplined, it's young, it's immaturity, and you know, those are the things that are hurting this team right now. So that, and when you have a defense that, again, just cannot stop the run, they saw something in that. The Vikings got some middle linebacker guys back that were, you know, blitzing the heck out of her and killing Ben. You know, he had no time to throw the ball. Then you know, they flipped the script in the second half. Well, I don't even want to say second half. End of third quarter is when they started to come alive, and you know, I don't know. There seems to be some weird balance that Ben is trying to, you know, run his offense, and the offensive coordinator Canada is trying to run his offense, and there's no continuity here. You know, I think Ben does best when he runs that 2-minute, you know, catches teams off guard, and you know, when they try to do a scripted Matt Canada type offense, it just doesn't work.
And Mike, how big of a loss was it to have TJ Watt have to miss the rest of this game? He had to leave because of a groin injury. He has arguably been the best player for this team, and he possibly could be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. To not have him for that second half, boy, that was pretty critical too.
Yeah, I mean, that hurt, because Dalvin Cook was running for a while, literally 10 yards a carry. I mean, he had like 180 yards rushing in the first half, which was unbelievable. It was huge to lose him, but it almost felt like the Vikings play calling bailed them out and kind of counterbalanced it, because they just kept throwing the ball up 29 points. It was just puzzling to see what they were doing and allowing themselves to be put in positions where Kirk Cousins would throw interceptions, 2 picks. And credit the Steelers defense, they made the plays, but it was just weird to see the play calling that the Vikings were going with.
Well, Mike, I don't think the Vikings knew how to finish that game off.
Exactly.
You know, a better team would have put the pedal in. That might have been a 42-10 game.
All but
or
one of their
something,
games
you know,
in one
40,
score all year.
Right, and they just didn't know how to play with a big lead like that when
Yeah.
all their games have been played close as well, I think, you know.
Yeah.
So
And this coming off of a Monday night game where we
Yeah.
saw the Patriots run the ball all night long
Yeah.
against
All but
Buffalo.
3 times.
So
Yeah.
if it's working for you, why would you go away from it? So
Yeah.
Right.
in a way, the Vikings kind of gave Pittsburgh a little help there in that second
at the
half.
beginning of that game, when Delvin Cook is running wild, I'm thinking I'm watching a version of the Ten Commandments, and Moses is standing there parting the Red Sea, and instead of the Israelites, it's Delvin Cook running straight up the middle untouched. There was no gap play. There were no fighting off their blocks. And the guy's running 27 yards at a clip, I wasn't sure whether I was watching an Easter special during Christmas time or what, but yeah, that was just not good. And I think even Cam Hayward probably mentioned that there was no fighting off blocks, and you can't have that on the road, letting a team just run. What do you have, 200 plus yards in that game? That's not good.
Almost 200 before the first half.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, and it was easy. And then they stacked the line to try to stop them, and then no one contained, and they just ran around it. And I was like, what am I watching here?
Yeah.
This is not December football.
And Mike, we heard in the post-game comments, we've been hearing this for almost a month now. It's almost like a broken record from Mike Tomlin. We got beat up front, both sides of the ball, offense, defensive lines. We're getting pushed around. We're playing JV football. I mean, how does the coaching staff even try to solve this with a month of the season left?
You don't want to give up on the year, but I think a lot of this has to do with personnel, and they've got to fix this through the draft and free agency. I mean, obviously on the defensive side, there's more injuries than on the offensive line, but
Sure.
I just think maybe there's not much you can do. I'm not saying it's unsalvageable, but I think a lot of these problems do come up in the offseason where you've got to address it. You've got to make sure these are priorities in the draft, in free agency. You got to find guys that are going to make this thing work, because at this point in the season, you've got what you've got. And if they're not going to go out there and be able to execute the way that you're playing this thing out, I just don't know what you can do.
And for me, words are words, but it's the body language that you
Right.
see these guys the last couple of weeks in these post-game comments where it's just like they're so beaten up because I think they're running out of answers.
Right.
They've gone to these practices, they've gone through walkthroughs, and they have no answers anymore. And they
Yeah.
just got to ride this out. Like you said, Mike, there's no other way around it than, might have to rip the Band-Aid off at the end of the season and make some changes on the staff. So at least moving forward, Kent, how does Pittsburgh handle this little mini bye and just try to kind of get a regroup with 4 weeks left, and then they're going to be back home against Tennessee to start this 4-game stretch.
Right. Well, you got to get healthy first, and then you have to figure out some way to get in there, get that offensive line solidified to the point where they can protect Ben. Because if he's a guy wavering on retirement, all you need is watch this tape, and he might call for an early one. So that's what can you do? You have the personnel that you have. So. Luckily for them, they got a home game coming up with a banged-up team coming in with Tennessee. Well, I think they have 5-6 Pro Bowlers that are out for that team. So
They've already broken the NFL record for most activated players on a roster
Right.
in any season, and there's still 4 or 5 weeks to go.
So
That's
in other words,
crazy.
get ready for a nail biter. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be, it's not going to be one lopsided with either one of those teams. It'll come down to the wire again. Could possibly come down to the very last play of the game like they have been. So I don't know. I think you have to start with getting this win and trying to get back above 5. Now you have to get back above 500 to get back into the, you're not quite out of it yet, but and hope for some luck now. Now you're starting to put your fate in the hands of other teams and what they do.
Yeah, especially if you have
That's not good.
If you have to leapfrog some teams, if you're sitting 10th right now in
Yeah.
the AFC and you're 3 spots behind,
Yeah.
you're going to need some luck down the stretch.
Because really, you look at the tiebreaker scenarios, I think Buffalo is probably the only one they feel good about. I mean, they've got swept by the Bengals. They have the advantage right now with Baltimore, but not in the standings. So just the tiebreakers don't really break their
They
way.
lost to the Chargers.
You're right, exactly.
Right.
The Chargers and the Bills and the Bengals. So those are your 3 wildcard teams right now. That's not a position you want to be in. I think the interesting thing it's going to come down to is this tie. How's it going to work? Is it going to work in their favor? Is it going
Right.
to work against them? I think it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. When you really look at these last 4, I think they have to get at least 3. And you look at that Kansas City game on the road, that's going to be brutal.
Yeah.
How can you get these other 3 games? Not trying to say
Right.
that they can't win that game, but I think that's if you want to be a realist, I think they've got to find a way to get these other 3, see how the standings break.
Might come down to that very last game in Baltimore.
That's right.
And then you wonder if Baltimore's resting guys, if they've already won the
Right.
division or they don't have a chance to advance their seeding.
Right.
Maybe they sit some guys and you
they're
might get
as
a break
banged up
there.
as anybody too. So who do you rest?
And
Right.
Cincy's
You know?
got a head-to-head with Baltimore with 1 to
Right.
go in that series, so that'll be interesting. Who knows?
So bottom line, it's going
Lot.
to be juicy down the stretch.
Yeah,
It's going to be a wild one.
That's why they play the games, right?
And that's why the NFL likes the parity. They want
Yeah.
to see this all the way through and see how the playoffs will unfold. Well, guys, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week as we get ready for week number 15.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week for Black and Gold Digital Edition.